has definitely been a considerable chunk of time since I've done this. I apologize for that. By the time this goes up, there'll be an explanation that being that college classes are starting up again for me, and as such, hey, I need to actually lock in for once in the entirety of my life. Do not ask me how my previous classes went. It was not good, which is why I'm actually going to try this time. I hope. If you see a sharp uptick in videos, you'll know that I have given up on that. My prospects aren't the greatest. So, we're finally doing this again. Also, in the period of time when that happened, I restructured the entirety of my room. As such, I'm sitting on a chair and a desk and all. I had the desk for ages, I just hadn't used it for like the better half of a year. The fun fact, what spurred me to do this was tearing the fucking closet doors off of my closet. Uh, Weird explanation, long story, not getting into it. Pretty much, my room feels a lot bigger now, so I'm actually using a desk, which means I have proper back posture. Isn't that fun? But it'll probably mean I won't have to, like, fiddle around as much, with any luck, or at least not with my wires. So, kept you waiting, huh? Probably. Let me check when my last video went up. I know it's been a few days, and for that I am sorry. Oof, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. One of these was almost like fucking 2 weeks ago, Jesus. So, with any luck, maybe it's good to see me back again. Probably not, but, you know, maybe. In either case, we're here. Sometimes I re-listen to my old stuff just so I know that I'm not gonna, like, repeat myself and double over on the things I say. Not the most effective, but hey, I mean, I'm giving it a fair shot as I take a sip of water. And I remember that I wasn't finished talking on that, like, episode or whatever you want to call it, with all the some like weapons and stories. So I'm going to do that now. I mean, I guess. Uh, how does he do it? Nothing. I'm fucking so proud of that guy. Also, did any of you guys play Depth? The asymmetrical game Depth, where you're like divers versus sharks? I've been playing a lot of it recently. Game's a little bit dead. If you guys own Depth, might want to like play it every now and again. You might see me given the low player count, and also I just want to see more people in Depth, man. Anyway, I've had these notes for like 2 days now. I think they're fine. I think that's everything I want to mention for today. We're doing combat and stories. It's a bit like building off of weapons and stories, and I know you usually have like fight scenes as like a little segment. Kinda, sometimes maybe. I know I did for pacing, at least, and I went over it briefly when I was mentioning post-apocalypse stories, and I think I've mentioned it here and there in SCP and my backrooms video and like the location stuff. Um, but we're talking about combat and stories today. Because combat's a huge part of storytelling as a whole, right? There's a lot of, all sorts of fight scenes in just about any genre, right? Even cosmic horror, although we never mention fighting in cosmic horror because I usually think that the fun part of cosmic horror is the inability or like a stark weakness or vulnerability, but that's besides the point, right? Like steampunk, sci-fi slash future setting slash whatever, fantasy, diesel punk, whatever the hell else is going around nowadays. A lot of RPGs are fucking chock full of fight scenes. Other media, right? Like anime, movies, uh, games especially, tabletop games. Most of your sessions will be denoted to some sort of combat, right? It's very important to get combat down right. I don't know how much I'll be able to mention TTRPG in this, considering every system has its own rules, but maybe I'll be able to sneak in a few tips here and there. Uh, but no matter, and obviously there will be stories without combat, right? Slice of life comes to mind, even though it's not my genre. But I know it is many people's genres, so slice of life typically won't have like combat. Might be a little scuffles here and there, but it's not combat. The difference between combat and fighting is having a spat here and there, having a little bit of a tussle, right? Whereas combat is a scene for the express purpose of fighting. No, I mean, that sounds stupid, right? The explanation I gave is not the most clear, not the most concise, etc. but I think you understand what I mean. Whereas, like, yeah, you can have a fight in your story, but that doesn't necessarily make it a combat scene because a combat scene is a lot more than just putting up your dukes and beating each other silly a little bit. Combat proper is like actually getting into it, if you know what I'm saying. And maybe that'll become a bit more clear as I continue on with this. So, where do we start? Let's start with the scale. Right. What is the scale of your combat in your story? Is the combat the climax? As it so often is with fantasy stories, like the triumph of good versus evil and all that. Um, is the combat in your story going to be building up to the climax and then the big climactic final battle? Or hell, you can like even no, that's not even what scale is. That's more purpose and story. Sorry. Um, well, though also do keep in mind like big climactic final battle is likely going to be the biggest, flashiest sort of wall that you'll have, as opposed to your general like kerfuffle or like skirmish, scouting party raids, all that. Scale. This will usually reveal itself via who's involved in the fight. A small scale, usually. Well, no, yeah, small scale usually is just encompassing your main character with like one or maybe even two other people, right? That's a small scale fight. And obviously you can intuit scale with the bigger and like how many more people are involved in it, right? Like a 5v5 is like a pretty large fight. Might consider it small compared to like armies clashing against armies, but like I'll get into why that's not super true. Also keep in mind how many people, how if it affects non-combatants as well, like with armies fighting each other. That'll have its impact on the civilian population, either directly or forcing them to like evacuate, move, razing of their cities, shit like that. How big is this fight scene going to be? And you may be asking yourself, why do I need to do that? Maybe you're not asking yourself because that's a ridiculous question. It's pretty obvious why, but it's in order to like have the stakes be clear in your story, have it be obvious exactly what's happening for this fight scene, because it's really important to establish early like what is the stakes, how tense is this going to be, what is the impact this will have on the story, on the characters, on the world, on all sorts of shit like that, yeah? And it's up to you to find out what scene needs what scale. Usually it'll end up being a small scale sort of thing, usually, though sometimes it could be a bit larger. This is especially relevant if it's a a story or plot beat specific encounter. Like currently, little mini arc going on in my fan fiction that has a series of like skirmishes and fights and stuff throughout the chapters I've been posting for my fanfic. Right? They're not the biggest fights; they're pretty small scale, but having a bunch of them repeatedly makes it feel bigger than it is. And the most recent one was like the largest one so far, even though they're not usually in like rising order or anything. But the point of that was to emphasize, like, hey, sometimes you're gonna get big shit in you all at once, and sometimes you're just gonna have little hurdles to leap over. That wasn't the intentional purpose, but it's what ended up happening, right? Because I was like, well, I don't really. It's also because I wasn't as. And keep in mind, as the writer, sometimes you're just not feeling up to doing something, and that's fine. You can come back later if you think you want to revamp it, but you don't always need to. Most of it was because I, as the writer, just couldn't be asked to do large, like, entire chapter long fights. Sure, there's a fight every chapter, but the point of the chapters usually is not the fight. There just happens to be in there, small scale, as opposed to what 10-ish chapters earlier. Like the fight was the entire chapter, and that was the point because like the collector showed up. It's Darkest Dungeon fanfic, so collector's a big threat, especially with DD2. Oh man, he's such a fun fight. um, but point is right. Keep in mind small scale should be kept small scale, large scale should have large implications. And just because it's a small scale fight doesn't mean the shit that happens can't be brutal. Sure, it's small scale in the fact that only these two characters are clashing, but they can like break a bone and be fucked up for the next little plot beat, even though it's a small scale fight. Small scale, but that doesn't mean the risks aren't high. Something along those lines. You get what I'm saying? All right. So, purpose and story. This is usually very important to get down right as well. Readers don't always like reading a. Readers generally don't like reading scenes that feel superfluous or useless or as though the author tacked it on to meet some sort of quota or goal they feel they must establish for themselves. Right? Because hey, everybody values their own time, and whether when they feel their time is being wasted, they generally don't give it its dues and stuff like that. Like I find myself like scrolling over some like not chapters, usually not chapters, sometimes like 2, 3 paragraphs at a time. If I can tell it's just hold on. If I can tell it's just there for the sake of extending runtime because the author felt like they needed so many words in a chapter. I know that because I am that author. I usually feel like I need at least 3,000 words per chapter before I can put it out there. Is that just a me thing? Do you guys also feel that way? I don't know if that's just like a me thing where I feel like I need a certain amount of words per chapter and that usually makes me feel odd. Sometimes I'll just throw it out there anyway, but usually I'm like, oh, I need 3,000, 4,000 words a chapter. Definitely a habit I have to kick. Um, let's see here. But purpose and story, as like I said, your readers will know when something feels worthless or useless, and it won't be something they won't enjoy. Hell, if you're lucky, they'll tell you in comments. So far, I don't know if I'm happy or not, have not gotten a genuine hate comment. I consider that a mark of pride whenever I get a real one, but until I get a real one, I'm simply lame. I don't know. I sidetrack. I'm getting back into the swing of shit. I'll sidetrack myself all the time. Consider its purpose in the story. What is the reason you're throwing in this fight scene? Is it to be an obstacle? Is it to be a roadblock? Is it to set up the next arc? Is it to further a character's growth? Because you can further character arcs and character growth during fights. Tabletop's great for this if you have them fight someone important to their backstory, or family, or a NPC turned enemy, or like a double agent, right? Or they're doing a fight in order to prevent a calamity that will affect a town that they have invested interest in. Tabletop games are especially rife for fights that have more purpose than just to be a fight to entertain your players. Same with like fights in any story, like they have more purpose than just to be a fight scene to entertain your readers. There could be genuine stakes here, not like you will fight me now or I will blow up the entirety of the tri-state area or some shit like that, right? But more of a like we need to infiltrate this base and take out this target because they're an architect who has beforehand worked on the city, and if they leak plans to the main villain whose cause they're sympathetic to, that could spell the disaster for 5,000, 6,000, maybe even 10,000 people. If you see what I'm saying here. What is the point of the story? I don't think fight scenes should ever. No, well, fight scenes are the ones that you can probably get them away with it the most, but don't push your luck. Even fight scenes usually are benefiting by having a purpose, right? Um, as is most anything. Uh, I'll put the post out later. I'll start typing the post to like say like, hey guys, college is starting for me. Video's gonna slow down, and I'll do that. And like when I finish this, or if I have to get up to go do something. But hold on, let's just sip more water. What some other purposes fight scenes could have? A fight scene is a great inciting incident. Not exciting incident, though they'll probably be exciting. A great inciting incident, getting your character into the plot. For example, dwarves, right, who have a large connection to home, or okay, there's two things I immediately thought of. Dwarves who have either a large vested connection to their home, which they consider more important above all else, or they need to honor a promise they made to someone else to come to their aid, right? A fight scene is a great excuse to get a dwarf out of their home, who would otherwise be very averse to leaving. If they feel their home is threatened by an outside force, shown to the audience without ever saying, "I think my home's threatened." No, by threatening their home, in the story, then that's a good excuse for the dwarf taking up arms, gathering their gear, and leaving to be an offensive bulwark to protect their home and the ones they care about. Or they get word of the neighboring stronghold, who they've had close diplomatic ties to for centuries, is currently under siege. That simply just cannot be allowed to continue. Just there's no two ways about it. We need to kick their ass right here, right now. Who the fuck do they think they are? Come in messing with our partners, sort of idea. Or on a smaller scale, right? Your character could just start by getting fucking mugged. Whether or not they successfully get mugged or not, it's up to you. It's up to your story, up to your character, shit like that. But your characters can just start off getting like mugged or something. Or hell, it could even be a fucking non sequitur. Doesn't immediately need to lead into, of course, now I know how the plot's gonna go. But if you, what's the thing in media res? You can just start in the middle of a fucking fight scene. No, like, it's fine. It's also a great closer, obviously. But keep in mind, combat is a lot more than just. I feel like it's getting boring. Add some flair, and they all crack their knuckles and walk at you intimidating like. No, they can, like fight scenes can stand do a lot more. Consider the humble arena setting where you must represent your people or your whatevers in a gladiatorial combat, trial by combat, stuff like that, to prove your worth, to prove what you're saying is true, to prove yourself in the arena, to get our sponsorship, to give you clemency for whatever, right? Up to your story, up to whatever happens, but keep in mind, please, fights can have more purpose than just entertainment. Ignore that it was just a fucking gladiatorial arena, but whatever. Uh, Now, onto a sort of. Ugh, almost vomited out of nowhere. What the fuck? Uh, Onto a kind of connected point. Do you need to do it right now? Do you need to fight? Have a fight scene right here, right now in the story. Is that necessary? Is that needed? Is that the time? Sometimes it would be a good pace breaker, right? To put in a fight scene. Sometimes that is nice, right? Like a gala getting interrupted by a terrorist attack or whatever, or the main villain holding it for ransom, or like a shock and awe tactic sort of shit. Other times, if the scene of the gala already has a lot of cutthroat like politicking, it doesn't really need a fight. At least not combat, because like verbal spars and all that. It doesn't need combat there. What is the thing I'm trying to tell you right there? Because wouldn't that be also a great time to introduce a lot of chaos by having a sort of shock and awe terror attack? Yes, that would be. But once you throw in too many things, it's sort of like, okay, well, I don't know what the fuck is happening anymore as the reader, right? I'm not saying your readers are like easily spooked little lizard creatures or anything of the sort. What I am saying, however, is that sometimes you're putting too many cooks spoil the broth, or whatever the fuck is the various sayings of that one are. The idea I'm trying to put upon you is that in a scene like that, where there's a lot of politicking and backhanded deals and like backhanded compliments and like a lot of political clout being thrown around, people pushing their weight around, it's not necessary to interrupt yourself with a real swift punch to the jaw of a fight scene. You can let the scene exist on its own with the tension and sort of catharsis that comes from these moments already, right? If your main character has to appeal to a union boss who's basically a fucking mafioso, right? And they have to really make it worth their time, plead their case properly, call upon their allies to really stress how much, hey, motherfucker, this deal benefits everyone. Why can't you stop being thick-headed for once in your goddamn life and listen to me right here and right now? If you don't assist me, you and your people are going to be fucking crippled for life, sort of shit. You don't need immediately to have like a fight scene that might ruin what could have already been an impactful, memorable scene. But the, on the other hand, like a gala would be yes, a great point for shock and awe tactics, sort of from the main villain's perspective. So if you're not doing something like that, then that would be a good time to throw in a fight. Because while the question may be, do you need to do it right now, makes it almost seem like demeaning you, like saying, oh, is it really necessary to put that in right now? Just let it be. Sometimes, yeah, this would be a good time to put in a fight scene. It's up to you, it's up to your plot, but keep in mind openings and keep in mind what isn't an opening. The well-known random encounters table. First of all, ask your party if they want random encounter combats. Sometimes it's just not the time. As I grab some water. Sometimes it's just not the campaign for random encounter combats, bandits on the road and shit like that. Other times, go ham wild with it. For your stories, ask yourself, does this travel scene need a combat right now? Do they need to be pulled over by border security and have to fight to keep what they're smuggling in a secret or something like that? Usually my gauge is if we just got off of a an impactful like story beat or just closed off someone's character arc. Probably not, because you can let the readers sit in with the satisfaction of this just got accomplished, have a little cooldown period, and then once their travel is over, you can get back into the plot. Usually, I don't have travel be interrupted. Usually, obviously, there's a time and place for everything, but I usually like having the travel as a pace breaker from maybe potentially combat to combat. Or the inverse, where the travel is the fights and the locations between are other things, plot important, whatever. But again, look for what is a good opening for you that you can easily slot in a fight relevant to the story or otherwise, and look for what is fine and able to stand on its own merits. That does not necessitate you to put in a combat in your story or in this part of your story. Uh, there's something like the 5 act structure and like the hero's journey and all that stuff, and I realized I don't have one on hand, and I also don't like using those. I'm not the biggest fan of someone like pulling up the 5 act structure or the hero's journey and arc, and like I get that they're good guidelines and all that, and that they do work and stuff. It's just like I don't personally use those when I write, so I couldn't help you with like that as a guideline or a rule of thumb. I had no horse in this race and all that. But again, just look for openings. And if you see an opening, right, probe around it and see, does it really need to be a fight specifically? Because sometimes it'll spoil the mood. Now, pacing. How do you pace this combat scene? That really depends. Oh, great answer, cheese underscore stick one. Hey, fuck you, pal. All right. But also, you're right. But loath as I am to admit it, there's no other real way I know how to explain it other than just it depends heavily. What is the point of your fight scene? No, I mean, bad example. What is the context? That's the word. What's the context of your fight scene? If your characters just got ambushed, it being quick, snappy, punchy would be perfect. If they're the ones doing the ambush, weirdly enough, having it be slower and more like the pacing be a lot slower and drawn out could be a lot better instead to emphasize showing that they have the upper hand, they're in control here, they know what they're doing and they're doing it well. Idea. If you see what I'm saying, like right, consider like all sorts of like bits of your context for like how should this be paced. Obviously, up to the story as much as it is up to you. Keep in mind the story has a say on how the plot should be paced. Right? Just because you want something to happen doesn't mean your story is going to immediately accommodate for it. Uh, hold on. Alright, cool. Never mind, actually, I'm thirsty again. There we are. I had to shake off some nausea, you know how it goes. Uh, if you've watched my stuff, you know how it goes, rather. Right, as I was saying, like the different fight scene, there's no one size fits all pacing for fighting in your stories, right? Sometimes things are nothing more than a speed bump, and other times it's something that maybe your main character's on the back foot, which require in a different way than being ambushed. Maybe your main character's on the back foot, like they've been bled dry of the resources for like, or they just got out of a fucking car crash, right? And they've crawled into the woods, and now they're being either chased by a search party, or hell, they're even just being stalked by a fucking bear or a pack of wolves or something. Search party. I don't really think you should. What the fuck am I saying right now? Forget everything I just told you. Um, and then remember it now, would you kindly? Point is, if your main character's on the back foot, such as they got a debilitating injury, right? Hand over their wound, right? Stopping the trying to clot the blood. Knife held shakily in their grip. It might be for the best to slow down the pacing. Detail like feints, people trying to like intimidate your main character, like trying to get them to flinch back down, taking their time, playing with their food, basically idea. Because that helps get the readers into the mindset of the main character of like, oh shit, this is bad. I might fucking die here. Idea because they're just so heavily on the back foot, not really ready for this shit. Or at least not doing good right now. Um, as opposed to other fight scenes may have had previously where they're pretty even, right? Where it's over in 1,500 words or something along those lines. I can't even really give you an idea for like, I know I just said like, oh yeah, usually I shoot for 3,000, 4,000 words for chapter updates. I don't shoot for a word count in a fight scene. I just go until I think this is good. Within the scene itself, too, by the way, there will be natural pace breakers. If your main characters have ranged weapons, them reloading is a nice little way to break up the pacing for a sec, for a quick mo, or them taking 2, 3 steps back for a little breather is another like pace breaker. While they breathe, they can dart their eyes around, get a bead on their allies, see how they're doing, or take a quick glance over the shoulder to check for any flank. Oh, check for any flanking opponents. Sorry, I ate a little while ago, which naturally means I must be nauseous. The rules of the fucking world as it is. Ugh. Ugh. Alright, I think I'm good. Maybe. Not for long, at least. Um, right. Just, again, I don't think those fucking writing tips are usually... What the fuck am I even talking about right now? I thought about the write 500 words a day and go do push-ups and then edit for 3 hours and stuff like that. Like, I thought of those things that you see sometimes. I think they're fucking stupid. Did I ever mention how I do my writing? All I do is I just write daily. There's no limit. I just like fucking what a paragraph, fine, good enough. If I don't feel like writing, if I'm burnt out or something, I just do a little bit of editing. Or if I'm burnt out on this project, I just swap projects for like a week or two. It's whatever. Just find what works for you. Um, anyway, there'll be natural pace breakers you can find in your story. You can not in your story, in your fight scenes. You'll be able to make them yourself if need be. all sorts of things. Just keep in mind, pacing should be clear to you as you're writing the scene. It'll slowly reveal itself whether or not this scene should be short, quick, long, what kind of language you should use, sort of stuff like that. Alright. Now that we've done our red tape bureaucracy stuff, we can actually start getting into talking about combat in stories. Such as tech level to denote weaponry in your stories. Again, as I mentioned last time, holy fuck. Last time was talking about the weapons, right? If you want to hear my takes on various weapons and stories and what I think they're good for and stuff like that, I don't even think that's what the video was even fucking about. I'm just saying shit at this point. Go watch it. But I guess this is like a little quick recap or something. Modern settings and their guns, fantasy settings and their crossbows, swords, and shields, future settings and their literally whatever the fuck the author will justify it in the end, thinly or not. But tech level to denote weaponry is pretty important to establish for yourself, your audience, etc., for your story so they can get a good understanding. When your main character uses a sword, they get a pretty moderate understanding on the surface level of what your main character's like. When they use a gun, you kind of get a bit of an understanding there, depending on the kind of gun they use and the stereotypes surrounding them. You know, those being pistols, SMGs, rifles, shotgun snipers, DMRs, LMGs. I think I'm forgetting a few, but I think I'm also not. And if your story gives them a fucking grenade launcher or flamethrower or something like that. Um, Laser weapons are fucking lame. I will die on that hill. Laser weapons, energy weapons, whatever you want to call them, fucking blow. I really am not impressed by, nor do I enjoy energy weapons in stories. I fully, genuinely, wholeheartedly believe kinetics to be superior in just about every way. Production, range, damage, ease of use, also all the whole 9 yards, really. Buck energy weapons. Kinetic chads stay winning. Las cells cope and seethe. But still, kind of weaponry is abundant in your world. Even beyond what kind of weaponry is there, what kind of weaponry is abundant? For fantasy, is there going to be trebuchets, catapults, hwachas? For modern, are you going to have like mortars and grenade launchers and like combined arms tactics with tanks and helicopters and jets and shit? I'm going to take a sip of water again. I'm choking down like fucking violin mucus and shit. I hate this. I hate this. Ugh. I guess I'm having a bad night. Kinda. Ish. Weird. Take a sip of water and then I'm gonna go use the bathroom. I'll be back in a second, folks. Well, second for you, like a minute or three for me. I'm back and made a community post too while I was gone. I don't know what I was talking about. Right, tech level weaponry denotations. Right, if like modern settings have like combined arms assistance with like tanks and helicopters and things like that. And again, in future settings, do literally whatever the fuck. Last cells, cope and see, kinetic chads stay winning, baby. But however your main characters are going to fight, what things they have access to and their surroundings around them, what's common for what the enemies are going to typically be using, a good rule of thumb for what is and isn't, or what could or could not be expected from the various types of weaponry that you'll be able to see in the story, is good to establish early on. Obviously, most of this will be intuitive. You see people slinging around spells, you'll kind of get at a glance like, oh yeah, fantasy setting, I can expect swords and shields too, bows and arrows, crossbows, things like that. Maybe even a cannon, who knows? Maybe if you're really spicy, an arquebus, however the fuck you pronounce that little matchlock rifle. Hmm? And then in modern settings, they're gonna understand like, oh yeah, guns and knives will reign supreme. Guns mostly, knives maybe. Whether or not they'll be able to have vehicles such as helicopters and tanks, I'll talk about vehicles more later, is up to the story specifically, so getting that a bit early kind of helps as well. Oof. Getting that early helps as well. This issue is more prudent when talking about future settings or sci-fi or what have you, because again, sci-fi can justify literally whatever the fuck. Again, the veneer may be thin, maybe worn a bit, loose in some places, like a bit like, okay, I guess I can see that, but that's still stupid idea. But because future settings can justify just about everything, I'm gonna drink some water. But because sci-fi, future settings, what have you, can justify just about pretty much anything, it's a bit more important for these settings to establish early on what they are going to have for their worlds. Just so the audience knows early on what's going on, so that way they're not grasping at straws and things like that. Because, believe it or not, you want your audience to know what the fuck going on. No? Uh, ugh, my jaw feels fucking weird, man. My gums feel off. I don't like that. Oh, hold on, give me 1 second. Okay. Should fix it. Ugh. Feels weird. I don't like that. Again, just make it clear to the audience what's going to be used in your story, because for some people, I don't know who these people would be, but for some people, sometimes weaponry, some types of weaponry are a complete turnoff for them, and they will probably not stick with your story. Again, not a clue who that might be and what those weapons might be, but potentially probably like energy weapons, because I don't think anybody likes those. Yeah. So keep at it, champ. I did finger guns and I snapped at you. I don't know if you saw. Probably didn't. Beyond just that, talk about what kind of main character you even have. How are they gonna act in a fight? In the again, you can read the description for like the notes on the points I have and make. In the description, it's called kind of MC. Do you have Rat versus Chad and all that? Tarkov terms, but because I would have said Bush Wookie, but like I don't think you guys play Hunt. I haven't played Hunt in ages. I'm proud of it. Ever since Hunt started going bad, I stopped playing. Let me pull up my Steam account. I can tell you when I stopped playing. How do I... How do I navigate my fucking Steam account? Games, there we are. I barely ever use this shit. Hunt Showdown. I stopped playing June 30th last year. More in a year. More in a year. I miss it. I miss it so much, damn. Y'all won't even know if I was looking at Hunt. Uh, spoiler, I wasn't. I was looking at something else too. Fuck me. But what kind of main character you have affects what kind of combat or how combat will typically go. Of course, there's the various archetypes that I've made note of before. Tank, DPS, healer, control, and what did I call it? Party face, buffer. What the hell did I call it, that last one? And flex pick here. I don't remember what I called it. I think I just called it the bard. Um, leader. I called it the leader. Right? Whether or not you make characters tank, DPS, healer, controller, leader will affect how they fight in the story, but so will their preferred weapon. Of course. Snipers stay in the back. as do mortar teams, because we need to remember that mortar teams exist and are cool. I'm not thinking of like people who those who utilize LMGs are going to stay stationary in one place. Same with miniguns. The image of a huge guy wielding a minigun does not really, I don't really care about that like much at all. I like lever actions and revolvers. Smiles at you. Uh, Point is, the rat versus the rat Chad thing, Tarkov terms, is pretty much just like, is your main character going to be all up in their face right when they fight? Or are they going to be a little cowardly backstabbing son of a bitch? Um, Despite how it may seem with how I just said that, fun fact about me, I adore writing cowardly little backstabby son of a bitches. Or sons of bitches, rather, I guess is not even to pronounce that. I find them a lot more fun to write for combat and just for story. If the character's like that, it just feels, I don't know, easier? Probably not the way to say it, but kind of how it feels for me. I like characters like that. To the point where I had to go out of my way to write like a bruiser type character, otherwise I knew I would basically never do it. But why is it important to establish how your main character fights? What doesn't that feel like pigeonholing your character into doing one sort of thing? Well, I guess yeah, if you're only gonna do it like fucking verbatim, but you don't have to do that. They can have a generally preferred strategy that they'll do beforehand, right? Like, a rogue isn't always going to sneak because they're not always going to have the chance to sneak. Sometimes they're going to take hits on the chin. And that's fine. And that's not breaking away from the archetype because sometimes either rogues get caught or sometimes they just need to be seen. Or sometimes they just can't hide. Shout out to you, beholders. Or people with blind sight. Players hate this one weird trick. Find out how this DM caused a TPK in less than 5 minutes. Yeah, I gave it blind sight and multi-attack. Outstanding. Fun fact, guys, one of my homebrew rules is that for 5e or 5.5 or whatever, you know how like multi-attack for players gives you, when you take the attack action, you make two separate weapon attacks? I just give them two separate actions, but still don't let them cast more than one leveled spell a turn. That way, sword and spell feels nice, and that way, even if you're not playing sword and spell and you're just pure martial, you have another action to do shit with, like dashing and disengaging. Sure, you could argue this puts less emphasis on the rogue's ability to do that with the cunning action, but I argue also not, because they're still more than likely just going to do a second attack. This is just giving them more options, giving them more fun. Might want to consider that for your own groups. Hmm? Hmm. Um, but, like I said, main character might have a preferred method of fighting that they may not always be able to do, which A, gives them a little bit of flavor, a little bit of character, all that sort of fun shit. And B, is more important too, gives you as the author a guideline for how to write them when these scenes are coming up. This gives you a nice little jumping off point. Whether or not you're going to stick with it or go against the grain is up to you and up to the situation at hand. But it's a nice, easy little guideline for you to follow just in case. No shame in it. We could all use some help from time to time. I think that's good enough. Traps, ambushes, tricks, jumping a whole guy. Fight dirty. Vehicles. No. Uh, traps, ambushes, tricks, jumping a whole guy. Sure, your main character might be honor bound, they may be against the idea. Well, just have them be ambushed, have them fall into traps, tricks, and be jumped, and have their whole guy be jumped. But the point I'm saying here, right, is that I see a lot of combats or scenes, like fight scenes, kind of be lame and not fun because it's just like of empty void where they're just beating on each other, and that's no fun unless it's smut, but that's the different type of beating on each other. What I'm trying to say here is trying to choke down my bile and not vomit. What I'm trying to say here, right, is that you can do a lot more than just have them meet politely on a grass field and fight until the first to fall. They can set up ahead of time footholds, wires, try to trip each other. If they're using one-handed swords, they have a whole other hand to punch each other with, to shove each other, to grab and pull, to reach for something else and throw it at them, to do all sorts of other shit beyond just like swing, parry, block, stab, and thrust combos, right? They have another hand. They could reach for a knife and use that as a parrying weapon to like try to shove their blade away to give them more time to angle their rapier properly and go for a throat pierce or or literally whatever. Okay, the fucking stumbling over my goddamn words. The biggest pitfall I see for fight scenes, for combat, for what have you, is that they're uninteresting and boring and almost stagnant and static. This can be easily resolved by having a bunch of other shit also happen. Traps, or how the fight is oriented, such as an ambush, or even a unique set piece where they're fighting in and around a river, so trying to push your opponent into the river is an important part of the combat, or trying to avoid being pushed in the river is an important part of combat. Or you're fighting on uneven terrain, so watch your footing, watch your enemy's footing, shit like that. Kick them if they're able to be kicked. If they go down, stomp their head in, show up to a 2v2 with 7 people behind you, right? All of this is good ways to put flourishes on your combat, make them stand out, especially from each other, especially from the rest of your story. This really matters from story to story, shit like that, right? Character to character. But there's a lot more you can do for your combats. Make your combats flow, but make them be weird. Fighting is never a smooth sort of thing unless it's like boxing or some shit, and even then, right? Fighting dirty, fighting underhanded, those are all just excuses for losing. Why didn't you do it? Um, right? What's the Buster Scruggs thing? Is like, are you ready? Yes, sir. You need a count? No, sir. And then he shoots him because he didn't need the countdown for the duel, right? Of course, the real underhanded tactic would be there to be like, just say anything, and as they're about to respond, just shoot them anyway. Cowboys did not honor fucking. Cowboys were not honor bound at all. Helps that most of them are just fucking criminals. If you could believe it, ain't much honor bound shit going on with a criminal. Whoa, who could have guessed that? But even though I just like named it all as like fighting dirty or dirty tactics, stuff like that, consider stealth. Consider funneling your enemies into a kill box, i.e., having scouts go ahead, fuck shit up, and then run back to a designated area where their party is waiting to then assault the enemy on their own proper terms. Right? Or even if it's just like a mindless beast or something, or what have you. Uh, but point is, please consider environment, please consider tactics, flanking, stealth, the light conditions, wind if it fucking matters. Have it rain. And have the rain matter beyond just being dramatic because hey, slippery footing, that shit matters. No. The answer is yes, it does. It matters immensely. So make it matter, would you kindly? Pheromones, they call it. I was right, asshole. I was right. Vehicles. Maybe thinking, cheese underscore stick one, I am writing fantasy. There is no room for vehicles in my story, even if there is horseback and carts. Incorrect. War wagons have existed for Are they called war wagons? War wagons have existed for ages. Yep. War wagon, any of several. I want this in dark mode. Several Historical types of early fighting vehicle involving an armed or armored animal-drawn cart or wagon. It is literally just like a cart with a standing platform and like a little ball with slits carved in it so you can pull out your arquebuses, your crossbows, just fucking throw shit out of it. It's like a chariot, but bigger. And it's like an APC, I guess, or an ancient APC. War wagons have existed for ages. Even if you're in fantasy, you can definitely have vehicles exist in there. And as I just mentioned, chariots are a good vehicle to use. Fantasy creatures, if you've got dragons, right? I don't know about aquatic anything, but you'll find a way. I drink 2 balls of water in less than an hour. I'm gonna go use the bathroom again. God, I am so fucking tired, man. Oh God. Ugh. Alright, more it. Don't you lecture me with your $30 haircut. Massachusetts fucking sucks. Um, right, vehicles. There can be a vehicle for just about literally any genre, any setting you can imagine. Diesel Punk fucking loves its vehicles. Usually shitty ass hover bikes. I don't like hover technology for vehicles. I think it's lame as fuck. Hover technology should be reserved for hand carts only, for pushing around fucking supplies in base. Fuck you and your hover you hauler. Just use fucking wheels. Use an EMP on your car. Yeah, you're fucked. There's your supply lines now, asshole. I have weird opinions on shit, like, that I'm staunch about. So, vehicles can fit just about any setting, right? Do you want to put them in your setting? Is the thing. You don't need to put vehicles in your setting because, hey, sometimes just fuck cars, right? Or bikes or whatever. Fuck them. Who needs them? Should I put hot dogs in my pocket tomorrow? That sounds weird out of context. Fuck you, I don't like your context. Should I put fucking hot dogs in my pockets tomorrow? Um, vehicles shouldn't. What the fuck was I saying? Ah, man, I fucking. Because sometimes just fuck cars, right? Sometimes you just don't want to put vehicles in your story, and you don't need to put vehicles in your story. But keep in mind the options always there. War wagons, your regular old sedan, hover cars, even though I don't fucking like them. 18 wheelers, a transformer for no reason. Uh, I was about to make a shitty joke, then realized I don't really have a good segue. The Segway guy from Happy Wheels. The wheelchair grandpa from Happy Wheels. Right? These are all things that can fit in your story, maybe, potentially, possibly. Motorcycle guy from Happy Wheels. He was crazy. I just thought of the voice line where the dad goes, "Damn it!" Uh, what did I say? So again, like I keep repeating myself, vehicles can fit just about any story that you need them to fit in. But don't feel pressured, all sorts of shit like that. It's just like if you think, oh hey, a cool chase scene could fit here, where they're like firing bolas off of fucking, I don't know, pterodactyl. Yeah, sure, go fucking crazy. Why not, pal? Just remember the implication, because you did it once, the readers will be like, why don't they keep doing this? So give a good reason why they can't if you don't keep doing that. Because if you establish it, sorry, pal, you established it. So you have to think about fucking reason beyond that. Final point, violence for its own sake. I don't know why I called it that. It's just like, remember when I said, do you really need this here? Fuck it, send it. If you're doing a hyper-violent world, why not? Violence for its own sake, baby. 88, no, that's, oh, damn it, that sounds bad. I meant the Lisa the Pointless Infinity franchise, not the racist dog whistle. I meant it's all the same old meat. I meant in the modern day Ouroboros. Nobody in particular. If anybody gets this, good. That it makes me sound like I'm. No, that still makes me sound like I'm crazy, but it makes me not sound racist, which is all I give a shit about. Is that a fucking face outside my window? That's cool. I'm not sleeping tonight. Uh, Although I should, considering what the hell I'm gonna have tomorrow for classes. I'll be there from 9 to 5, like a job. Not that I'll have classes from 9 to 5, it's just like, I don't know. If I gotta go back at 2, why fucking leave? It does be there for like fucking 5 hours between classes. Uh, but, right? Balance for its own sake? Sure, if you're writing that kind of story and it'll fit. Why not? Infinity franchise. Climb those folds, baby. That's like all I've got for you, I think, roughly. How useful was this really? I don't know, but I hope it was of some use to you. I bid you good luck whenever you're writing. Just keep in mind all that bookkeeping stuff, those points from the start. I think those were the most important points. Double back if you think anything I said there was useful for you, because it just might be. Remember to keep like doing storyboards and stuff because that can really help, if even just for one scene. Though I'd prefer if you storyboarded your whole story out already, just so that you have an idea of where you want the plot to go, stuff like that. Also remember to straighten your back, drink some water, feed yourself properly, like shower, clean your fucking rooms, all that sort of shit. Have a good night, you freaks. I'm gonna try to catch some sleep before my class in the morning. Night.